The morning started off like any other episode of Today with Jenna and Friends. The lights were bright, the cameras rolled smoothly, and the energy in the studio buzzed with anticipation. Blake Shelton had been invited as a guest to promote his upcoming tour and new single, and everyone expected the usual charming, laid-back country star to grace the couch. He greeted the crew warmly, laughed during the mic check, and even cracked a joke about drinking coffee stronger than his last whiskey. The audience, already thrilled to see him, cheered louder than usual when Jenna introduced him with her signature enthusiasm. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But as the conversation turned unexpectedly tense, the shift in atmosphere was immediate. Blake, sitting stiffly with a forced smile, suddenly responded to a question that clearly caught him off guard. Jenna, perhaps unintentionally, touched a nerve when she brought up his recent absence from a televised charity event, suggesting it had let a lot of fans down. Blake blinked slowly, his smile fading as he straightened in his seat. "Excuse me," he asked, the southern warmth slipping from his voice. Jenna, still smiling, tried to soften the comment, but the damage was done. He paused, looked around the room as if to confirm what he'd just heard, then let out a short, humorless laugh. The studio audience quieted instantly. The tension was thick, uncomfortable, and undeniable. The producers behind the cameras shifted nervously. Blake, known for being direct, didn't hold back. "Let fans down." Blake repeated, his voice calm but hard. "That event was scheduled during the same week my father had surgery. I wasn't about to leave my family to sing a song for a camera." Jenna's expression changed, the smile vanishing as she held her hands up slightly. "I didn't mean it that way, Blake," she began, but he continued, eyes still locked on hers. "Maybe you should do a little more homework before throwing accusations like that on live TV." The silence that followed was suffocating. One of the co-hosts attempted to cut in with a nervous joke about Blake's fiery nature, but it fell flat. The air in the studio felt charged, and even viewers at home could sense the shift. Jenna, trying to maintain her composure, glanced at the teleprompter, clearly flustered. But Blake wasn't done. "I've given everything to my fans," he said, voice rising slightly. "And I sure as hell don't need to be called out on national television for choosing my family over publicity." The audience, unsure whether to clap or stay silent, simply sat stunned. Jenna reached out gently, maybe hoping to calm him, but Blake stood abruptly. "You know what?" he muttered, shaking his head. "I don't need this." He pulled off the lapel mic, handed it to a stunned crew member, and walked off the set without another word. Gasps echoed throughout the studio, and the cameras awkwardly panned to the hosts who sat speechless, struggling to salvage the segment. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. Producers scrambled, some trying to follow Blake, others yelling instructions into headsets. Jenna looked visibly shaken as the show cut to an impromptu commercial break. When they returned, she attempted a composed smile and addressed the situation delicately. "Well, as you just saw, things got a bit intense here," she said, her voice slightly trembling. "We have nothing but respect for Blake Shelton, and we hope everything is okay." But the damage had already made its way across the internet. Clips of the heated exchange began trending on social media within minutes, with hashtags like #BlakeWalksOff and #TodayShowDrama taking over timelines. Fans were divided. Some supported Jenna, claiming she was just doing her job, while others fiercely defended Blake's reaction, applauding him for standing up for himself and prioritizing family. Meanwhile, Blake's team released a short but pointed statement, confirming that he felt ambushed and disrespected on live television, and would be reconsidering future appearances on talk shows. News outlets ran with the story, speculating whether this would permanently damage his media relationships. Jenna's team, in turn, issued a follow-up response, expressing regret over the misunderstanding and emphasizing their admiration for Blake. But behind the PR statements, the rift was real, and the entire exchange sparked debates on the boundaries between journalism and sensationalism. Was it fair to question a celebrity's private decisions for the sake of hard interviews? Days later, Blake broke his silence on a late-night podcast, appearing calm but clearly still hurt. "I've always tried to be real," he said. "I don't pretend to be perfect, but when someone implies that I'm letting people down for taking care of my family, that crosses a line." The host nodded, letting him vent. People think just because you're famous, you owe them access to everything. But we're still human. We have dads, moms, kids. We miss things. And that doesn't mean we're selfish. His words resonated with many, especially those who had faced similar judgments in their personal lives. Meanwhile, Jenna continued hosting, though noticeably more guarded in her interviews. She made a few subtle references to the incident in following episodes, often emphasizing the importance of empathy and not jumping to conclusions. Still, the shadow of the clash lingered. Viewership dipped slightly in the days that followed, though curiosity kept people tuning in. Internally, producers debated whether to reach out to Blake for a reconciliation interview, but rumors suggested he had declined all requests. Behind the scenes, colleagues whispered about how rare such a public fallout was, especially with someone as seasoned and beloved as Blake Shelton. The network attempted to smooth things over quietly, but the digital world had already taken over the narrative, fueling theories, memes, and countless opinion threads. Weeks passed, and the buzz eventually began to fade, as news cycles moved on and other celebrity stories took center stage. But the incident left a lasting impression, not just on those involved but on audiences who saw a rare moment of raw, unscripted emotion. Blake returned to his tour, welcomed with thunderous applause at every stop. Fans held up signs reading, "Family First," and "We Love You, Blake," reinforcing their loyalty. He smiled more cautiously during interviews, choosing his press engagements more selectively. Jenna continued her hosting duties, but the vibe had subtly shifted. She appeared more reflective, perhaps learning that even the most well-meaning questions can be received as attacks when the full story isn't known. And while no formal apology or reunion ever occurred on air, both camps seemed to move forward, wiser, warier, and more aware of the fragile line between honesty and offense. In an era where every slip is captured and dissected, the clash served as a reminder that real emotions still exist behind celebrity smiles. Some viewers saw it as drama, others saw it as a man defending his truth. Either way, that morning on Today with Jenna and Friends became unforgettable. It wasn't just a walk-off. It was a statement. Though both sides had seemingly chosen the path of silence, the public wasn't ready to forget. Online forums, fan blogs, and entertainment YouTubers dissected every word, every gesture, every facial expression from that morning segment. Lip readers zoomed in on Jenna's whispered words after Blake stormed off. Body language experts gave their opinions on who truly felt cornered. It was no longer just about the event. It became a cultural flashpoint about boundaries, accountability, and the illusion of celebrity politeness. Quietly, however, some people close to both parties began to leak behind-the-scenes insights. A staffer from the production crew anonymously claimed that Blake had explicitly requested no mention of his family or private life prior to the show, a request allegedly ignored due to a last-minute decision by a segment producer looking for a more viral angle. That revelation stirred the pot even more, painting the clash in a more sympathetic light toward Blake. Soon after, a country music awards show extended an olive branch, offering Jenna a spot as a presenter, possibly as a subtle gesture of reconciliation or just for ratings. She declined. Meanwhile, Blake's manager made it clear, "We're not interested in staged apologies or drama for clicks." Blake's focus is on music, his fans, and his people. Behind closed doors, some of Jenna's colleagues expressed concern over how vulnerable live television had become. The push for viral moments was eroding the trust between hosts and guests, and this incident was a loud, public example of that breakdown. Months later, during a special episode celebrating the show's anniversary, there was a noticeable absence of celebrity guests. The show leaned heavily into heartwarming human interest stories instead, and the tone had softened across the board. It was subtle, but longtime viewers noticed. Jenna, though still charismatic and composed, approached interviews with a deeper humility. Whether Blake would ever return to the show remained unspoken, but it was clear, that day changed something fundamental. Not just for those on set, but for everyone watching. And in a media landscape where walkouts often feel staged and outrage is fleeting, this one stayed burned into memory, unfiltered, unscripted, and undeniably real.